Weak men don't hate the Sigma because he's better. They hate him because he reflects everything they wish they were. His calm exposes their chaos. His silence spotlights their noise. His independence makes their dependence unbearable. They don't actually dislike him. They dislike what his existence reminds them of, the gap between who they are and who they could be. Some men hate you not for what you've done, but for what you prove about them. The Sigma doesn't provoke anyone. He doesn't compete or demand attention. Yet his mere presence unsettles weak men who build identity from validation. He becomes their mirror, showing them their cracks without saying a word. And when the reflection gets too honest, they lash out, not because he's wrong, but because they can't stand seeing themselves. Projection is one of the oldest defense mechanisms in psychology. When someone can't face their flaws, they see them in someone else. For weak men, the Sigma is the perfect screen. He's quiet, detached, and self-assured, everything they can't fake for long. His self-possession threatens their fragile image of control. They project cowardice, arrogance, or hostility onto him, calling him antisocial, egotistical, or emotionless. But what they're really describing is their own insecurity under pressure. The Sigma doesn't absorb the projection, he observes it. He recognizes that hostility aimed at him is rarely about him. It's about people confronting their own inadequacy in his reflection. That's why he stays calm amid their noise. He knows what's happening beneath it. Insecure men attack what they secretly admire. Upcoming are 10 truths that explain why weak men project their insecurities onto the Sigma and how that silent exposure reveals the psychology of strength and weakness. 1. His composure highlights their emotional volatility. Weak men often rely on reaction to feel significant. They equate loudness with strength. When the Sigma remains calm in situations that would make others explode, it reveals how unstable they truly are. His composure isn't performance, it's discipline. He's trained to regulate emotion instead of being ruled by it. That restraint makes volatile men uncomfortable. They mistake calm for arrogance because it reminds them of their lack of control. The Sigma's neutrality threatens their emotional fragility. It denies them the satisfaction of pulling him into their drama. In truth, his composure exposes their dependency on chaos. Without someone to provoke or blame, their identities collapse. The man who stays calm in conflict unmasks the one addicted to reaction. 2. His independence exposes their need for approval. Weak men build identity through acceptance. They need reassurance, praise, and constant validation to feel valuable. The Sigma doesn't. He lives from an internal compass, not an external scoreboard. His self-sufficiency isn't rebellion, it's stability. That independence feels threatening to those who rely on belonging. It reminds them that they've built their worth on borrowed opinions. They call him cold or distant, but deep down, they're envious of his freedom. His refusal to need approval is the exact freedom they crave but are too afraid to claim. Dependence hates independence because it exposes the cage. 3. His self-respect mirrors their lack of boundaries. Weak men often confuse people-pleasing with kindness. They bend easily, overextend, and trade self-respect for acceptance. The Sigma doesn't. His boundaries are clear and firm, not out of ego, but out of principle. When he says no, they interpret it as arrogance. When he distances himself, they call it pride. But what's really happening is a clash between someone who honors himself and someone who doesn't know how. The Sigma's boundaries remind them of the standards they abandoned to stay liked. The moment you stop bending, you expose who's been leaning too hard. 4. His clarity shames their self-deception. Weak men survive through illusion. They tell themselves comforting lies to justify stagnation, excuses disguised as wisdom. The Sigma's clarity cuts through that fog. He doesn't debate or correct. He simply lives truthfully. That alone exposes how dishonest others are with themselves. When weak men see him move through life without pretending, they feel judged even when he says nothing. His honesty confronts their avoidance. His self-awareness turns their denial into discomfort. They attack what they can't admit. That truth feels heavier than lies. Honesty doesn't insult the weak, it reminds them what they buried. 5. His focus makes their distraction obvious. Weak men fill silence with noise because they can't stand being alone with themselves. They distract through gossip, entertainment, or constant validation. The sigma moves differently. His focus is surgical. He invests attention where it matters and withdraws from everything meaningless. That level of focus exposes how scattered others are. They interpret his stillness as detachment, but it's just direction. He's not disinterested, he's disciplined. And that's intolerable for men who define life by activity instead of purpose. The sigma's ability to stay unmoved by trivialities magnifies how easily others waste themselves. Focus embarrasses the restless. 6. His confidence without comparison confuses the insecure. Weak men measure themselves against others to feel worthy. Their confidence depends on being seen as superior. The sigma doesn't compare. His sense of worth is self-contained. He competes only with his own potential. That unshakable confidence creates confusion. Insecure men can't process a man who doesn't need ranking to feel powerful. They label him arrogant because humility, to them, looks like self-doubt. The sigma's quiet assurance disrupts their hierarchy. It proves there's a form of power that doesn't require domination. The confident man threatens the insecure because he removes the scoreboard they depend on. 7. His detachment undermines their manipulation. Control freaks and insecure men thrive on emotional leverage. They guilt, provoke, or flatter to maintain influence. But the sigma's detachment neutralizes that power. He can't be manipulated because his emotional anchor is internal. That resistance infuriates the weak. They label him unfeeling or robotic when really, he's simply immune to control. They mistake peace for passivity, misunderstanding that detachment isn't lack of care, it's self-protection from deceit. You can't control a man who doesn't fear being misunderstood. 8. His growth reminds them of their stagnation. Weak men resent progress because it exposes their comfort. The sigma evolves relentlessly not to impress, but to stay sharp. His growth becomes a mirror reflecting others' complacency. Instead of being inspired, the weak feel threatened. They interpret his improvement as judgment. But he's not competing, he's expanding. He refuses to live the same year twice and call it experience. His discipline reminds them of their excuses, and that's a truth they can't bear to face. So they project arrogance to disguise envy. Progress provokes those who chose pause. 9. His authenticity invalidates their performance. Weak men survive through masks, projected personas, polished for approval. The sigma's raw authenticity dismantles that illusion. His refusal to act makes their performance visible. Around him, fakery looks cheap and effortful. They respond with mockery or distance, calling him strange or aloof, because being genuine in a world built on pretense feels threatening. He doesn't fit their script, and that unpredictability exposes their need for one. Realness feels hostile to those addicted to pretending. 10. His existence proves strength is internal, not inherited. Weak men justify their failure by blaming circumstances, upbringing, luck, society. The sigma disproves that. His strength isn't given, it's earned. His calm, awareness, and discipline are built, not gifted. That reality collapses their excuses. He proves that power is internal architecture, not social privilege. And that's intolerable for men who built their identity around victimhood. They attack what they can't replicate: self-creation. The proof of strength is not in dominance, but in self-governance. On a final note, the sigma doesn't provoke projection, he reveals it. Weak men mirror their insecurities onto him because he embodies what they've neglected: discipline, peace, and truth. His calm doesn't insult them, it exposes them. And exposure always feels like attack when your identity is fragile. He doesn't make them small, he just stops pretending they're big. That's why he's both resented and respected. He doesn't fight their projection. He lets it collapse under its own dishonesty. Because when strength meets insecurity, the truth doesn't need defense, it only needs time.